So earlier this week, in a brazen display of strength, U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Secretary of State Antony Blinken landed in Taiwan and for a few hours met with the President of Taiwan. The action by senior U.S. diplomats set in motion a diplomatic furore. China's Defense Ministry has since announced that it was on high alert and launched a series of targeted military drills in the Taiwanese Strait. An associate professor of strategy at the University of Stellenbosch, Abel Esterhuyse, joins us now to explain the military exercises, what that could possibly indicate. Prof, thank you very much for availing yourself this afternoon. So a number of movements, or this has developed and moved quite significantly. News coming in that China has suspended cooperation with the United States on a number of measures and a number of issues. Those include climate change. Some of the measures include the cancellation of future phone calls and meetings between Chinese and U.S. defense leaders. What you read into this?
China is in a difficult position in terms of the visit by the U.S. speaker. And it's an existential problem for China because China definitely, I don't think China wants war at this stage. China have seen what happened to Russia. China is cautious. China is very deliberate in what it is doing. So I don't think China at this stage want to risk war. That's the one part of the story. The other part of the story is that China has to show that it is serious about Taiwan. And this raises the question as to what it can do, what it must do to demonstrate its seriousness, to demonstrate that it is concerned about the visit. So it's a difficult balancing game for China, and I think China handled it quite well at this stage.
They've resumed, though, their largest ever military exercises in the waters around Taiwan. What should that tell us?
Well, I think once again this is sort of a demonstration that this is very symbolic, in my opinion. China has to demonstrate that it is not really pleased with the visit by Nancy Pelosi, that it is really not, the underlying issue, of course, is the whole issue concerning the independence of and the recognition of Taiwan. So it is not pleased with how the U.S. is handling this, and I think, it has to do something. China cannot sit back and just leave it. And so you see this military demonstrations. It is demonstrating its capabilities. It is showing to both the United States and Taiwan that we are in the business. We don't like what you are doing. And we are uncomfortable with the visit. But then at the same time, one has to look at it from the perspective of the United States. And, from the United States side, the argument is simple. The United States ought to support the democracy in Taiwan. So there's legitimate reasons, I think, for how both states at this stage handle the problem, handle the crisis that they've created in a way. But both of them, I think, have done it in a responsible manner. And I don't think there will be too much consequences in all of this. The big question here is, of course, the elections that's coming up in November for the Chinese president. We know it's a sort of once again, a symbolic type of process that will unfold in November. But it's still important for the Chinese president to be seen as acting in a decisive manner.
He cannot afford to be seen as weak. You mentioned that China has to do something. It cannot leave this matter lying down. You also say they probably don't have an appetite for war. On Monday, the military celebrated 95 years in existence in that country. I see behind you the memorabilia that you have, including the warships. I think they are, maybe not warships, but those trucks there behind you. If we're talking about its military precision and, its capabilities. Just talk us through that and what we need to understand should China decide to press the button.
Well, China, well, let's look at it from a Taiwan perspective. They are sitting more or less in the same strategic advantage that have always protected Britain in the case of Europe. For Taiwan to invade Taiwan, you probably need to breach one of the biggest tank ditches in the world. You need to project power across the sea and across the ocean, and that's a difficult thing to do. That's probably one of the most difficult operations to conduct, and so this is not Russia invading the Ukraine that needs to cross a river type of thing. For China to literally invade Taiwan militarily will be a tremendous operation, because that kind of sea landing operations, it's difficult to do. You expose your forces, you're sitting on the ocean, there's nowhere to hide. You're exposed to air power, you're exposed to missiles. It's a very, very complicated and dangerous operation to do. And to be honest with you, I don't think China at this stage have exploited all the diplomatic and economic options that's available. China, I think, will be very, very cautious in how it approach the incorporation over time of Taiwan into mainland China. They will manage it very carefully. I think China is, from a diplomatic perspective and from a military perspective, very deliberate, very realistic, and they will handle this with care.
Yeah, I guess they can ill afford this. And when you take a look at what is happening within China, you mentioned the symbolic elections that will be taking place. If Xi Jinping does not do anything on this, how do you perceive that will then maybe impact his chances, if at all?
Well, it's in essence a simple reality. He needs to demonstrate strength. He needs to step forward and being seen as a strong man. That's important for him, and I think this is precisely what he's trying to do here. He's trying to play the strong man. He's demonstrating resolve. He will not take this laying down type of thing. So I actually respect the Chinese for the way that they have handled this crisis up until now. They have been very deliberate, and they have, in my opinion, thought through this. Everything that they have done, they've done in a deliberate manner. They have demonstrated resolve. They have demonstrated strength. But at the same time, they have been very cautious not to create another crisis, I almost want to say, in the way that Russia have created a crisis. One has to understand there's also the economic dimension of the relationship between the United States and China, and it's a very, very important relationship. And both the United States and China know that. China is perhaps more reliant on the United States for imports and exports than the United States is at this stage. So, China also don't want to disrupt its trade with the United States. So it is a very careful balancing act that China needs to engage in here, and I think they have done pretty well.
Prof, thank you very much for availing yourself this afternoon and for your time. Professor Abel Esterhuyse, Associate Professor of Strategy at the Faculty of Military Science at Stellenbosch University.